There was no name card for me at the table, just a blank space between two strangers and a flickering candle that didn't seem to want to stay lit. The rehearsal dinner was at a converted barn north of Camden, all twinkle lights and white hydrangeas, the kind of place people rent for Instagram, not memory. I stood there a few seconds longer than I needed to, waiting for anyone to notice the mistake. But no one did. A waiter passed by with a tray of champagne flutes. I shook my head. Behind me, Sophia laughed sharp and loud at something their cousin Brian said. Michael stood next to her, nodding, smiling the way grooms are supposed to. Liam tugged gently on my sleeve. "Mom," he whispered, "are we at the wrong table?" I crouched beside him, smoothing down his collar. "No, baby, this is just one of those adult things." He looked up at me with those clear green eyes, his dad's eyes, and I felt something twist in my chest. I kissed the top of his head and guided him to his seat. I sat down, folded my napkin into my lap, and waited. No one came. They hadn't saved me a seat at the family table. They hadn't saved me anything. 10 minutes later, Sophia clinked her glass for attention. "Thank you all for being here," she said, eyes glinting under the string lights. "It means the world to have our people around us." She didn't look at me. Not once. Elenina, my mother, sat beside her perfectly dressed, her wine glass raised like a queen presiding over her court. "Here's to the bride and groom," she said, "and to a perfect start." It didn't matter that I had designed the seating chart, that I'd confirmed the caterers, that I'd rewritten the program booklet 3 times because someone didn't like the font. Apparently, I wasn't one of their people. Across the room, someone started a toast about childhood memories and marshmallows and fireflies and jars. The stories all included Sophia, not me. I kept my back straight, my smile calm, my hand resting lightly on Liam's shoulder. But I couldn't stop wondering if I wasn't invited to their table. Was I ever really part of the family? There was a summer when Sophia broke her wrist falling off a horse at Camp Laurelwood. I was 19, home from college, and gave up my paid internship to drive her to physical therapy 3 times a week. She doesn't remember that. She remembers that Mom brought her balloons. There was a fall when Dad had his first heart scare. I was the one who stayed through the night in that blue vinyl chair in ICU, while Mom left early for a charity gala and Sophia texted from a date. I brought his slippers. I held the phone to his ear so he could listen to the Red Sox game when he couldn't open his eyes. At his funeral 3 years later, Sophia sobbed loudest. She got the front row and the microphone. I got to keep the funeral bill. I used to think if I just kept showing up, someone would notice. That loyalty earned space. But the thing about being the reliable one, the one who says it's fine and picks up the pieces, is eventually they start thinking you don't feel it when something breaks. After Liam was born, things got quiet. His father had already drifted long before the due date. I named him after Dad gave up the bigger job in Boston and moved back to Camden so Mom wouldn't have to travel to see her grandson. She visited once, brought a hand-me-down toy piano with a key missing, and said she had brunch plans at the club. When Sophia crashed her car during that ugly breakup with Connor, the guy with the boat and the temper, I was the one she called. Midnight, rain, no shoes. I wrapped her in one of Liam's blankets, let her sleep on our couch, made tea. She never said thank you. The next day, she asked if I could keep it quiet from Mom. I did. She still introduces me as my older sister. She's practical, good with numbers. Not once has she told anyone that I saved her. Not once has she said my name when it mattered. And when she handed me the wedding binder 3 months ago and said, "You're good at this stuff, right?" I said yes. Of course I said yes, because part of me still believed if I made this day perfect for her, I might earn my place back. That's the part of me I hate the most. But maybe the cruelest part wasn't that she forgot. It's that the first person to erase me was the one I stayed up all night protecting. I was in Elenina's study, cross-checking the guest list against the catering head count when I saw it. There. Under acknowledgments on the back of the program. Thanks to everyone who made this day special, our incredible vendors, the wedding party, and most of all, our families, Sophia's bridesmaids and Michael's groomsmen for their love and support. No mention of me, not as a sister, not as the person who booked those vendors, not as the one who caught the florist's mistake before the lilies were ruined. My name wasn't there, not even in the smallest print. I held the program between my fingers a little longer than necessary, as if maybe it would change. It didn't. I closed the binder gently. I didn't ask. I didn't say a word. Later that day, Sophia posted a carousel of behind-the-scenes shots from her bridal shower group photos, cake-cutting peonies in soft focus. I wasn't tagged. I wasn't in any of them, even the one I remember standing in. I'd taken the picture for her, handed the phone to one of the caterers to get a wider shot. She'd cropped me out. It was around then that I noticed something else. The family group chat had gone quiet for me. Invitations sent without my name. Updates about fittings menus, music, all shared, all discussed, but I wasn't included. It wasn't a confrontation. It was quieter than that. A gentle push to the margins. A series of omissions that taken together became undeniable. I was being edited out of the story in real time. That night, as I folded Liam's laundry, he came in holding one of his drawings. "Made this for your desk," he said. It was a simple sketch, 3 stars floating in a dark sky. One was smaller, set off to the side, a little wobbly. "That one's you," he added, pointing. "The one that's still glowing." I swallowed hard. "Why's mine way over there?" He shrugged. "Dunno. It just looked more peaceful." I held his picture long after he went to bed, because he didn't know. He didn't know that hours earlier I watched my name disappear and didn't fight it. I stopped correcting their mistakes. When the DJ's contract had the wrong date, I let Sophia find out on her own. When the bakery called to confirm lemon instead of lavender, I didn't reply. And when Michael texted asking if I could double-check the seating chart one more time, I stared at the message for a full minute before closing it. Seen. Not answered. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't spite. I just stopped. Stopped showing up early. Stopped staying late. Stopped offering suggestions they never listened to. I still came to the fittings, still nodded through conversations, but I was no longer inside the frame. I unfollowed the wedding account Sophia had made. Deleted the shared Google Drive link. I posted a single photo to my story, Liam's drawing taped to my office wall. The 3 stars. No caption. Then I locked the account. At the next family gathering, I arrived exactly on time, not a minute earlier. I brought Liam, said hello, and took the seat closest to the door. When asked if I'd brought the monogrammed welcome bags, I smiled and said, "No one asked me to. No one knew what to say." That night, Liam asked, "Are we still going to the rehearsal brunch tomorrow?" "I don't think we're on the list," I said gently. He was quiet for a moment, then climbed into my lap. "That's okay. We're not missing anything important, right?" I pressed my lips to his temple. "Not a thing. In a family like mine, disappearance doesn't happen all at once. It's not a slammed door. It's a door left ajar, then slowly closed while no one's looking. No accusations. No goodbyes. Just a quiet subtraction. And in that silence, something finally settled inside me. Maybe I didn't belong at their table anymore. But I also didn't have to beg for a seat. The wedding was held at St. Thomas Episcopal Church just off Main Street, a building with white columns and stained glass that caught the afternoon light like something holy. Liam and I arrived early as instructed. I wore a pale blue dress, simple pressed, respectful. He held my hand in his little suit and tie and told me I looked beautiful. "Thanks, buddy," I whispered. "That means everything." In the bridal suite, Sophia was surrounded by her bridesmaids, all in matching robes, all talking at once. I stood off to the side, holding a tray of boutonnieres, waiting for someone to notice I was there. She barely looked at me. Mom did, though. "That dress," she said with a tight smile. "Very you." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The ceremony itself was flawless white roses lining the pews, candlelight flickering like memory music, swelling at just the right moments. I walked down the aisle ahead of Sophia, bouquet in hand, head high. Not for her, for myself. For Liam, who sat in the front row smiling with quiet pride. After the vows, after the photos, after the toasts had begun, the reception moved to the ballroom at the Camden Opera House. Chandeliers sparkled overhead. Waiters floated. Everything looked like a magazine. Then Sophia took the microphone. "I just want to say a few words," she beamed, glass in hand. "First, to my incredible maid of honor, my sister Orly." I smiled, surprised. Guests clapped politely. Sophia's smile tightened. Orly's a single mom, raising a kid alone. So brave, right? Still showing up even when no one's ever really loved her properly. Laughter soft and confused. She's still on the market, by the way, Sophia added, smirking. Anyone looking to adopt? A few chuckles scattered like broken glass. I didn't move. My fingers curled around the edge of the table. Liam beside me gripped my hand tightly. Mom stood and raised her glass. Our Orly has always been the quiet one, practical. A little dull, maybe, but even secondhand goods can have value with the right packaging. More laughter now, louder. Something in me cracked, but I didn't show it. I stood up ready to walk out, not in shame, just to protect my son from hearing another word. Then I heard it, a chair scraping sharply across the floor. Michael. He stood at the head table, face flushed, jaw set, walked up to Sophia, took the microphone from her hand. I need to say something. Sophia laughed, nervous. Michael, what are you doing? He held up one hand. Let me finish. The room stilled. This day was supposed to be about love, about family. And yet, what I just heard was cruelty. Shallow. Vicious. And I won't be part of it. He turned to face the guests. Orly and I didn't meet last month. We met 12 years ago in a hospital where my sister Emily was dying of leukemia. She was 16. Orly was a volunteer. She read to Emily, sat with her, sang to her. She brought her son, just 5 at the time, who drew pictures of planets and stars and left them at her bedside. Gasps rippled through the room. Emily used to say Orly was the only person who treated her like she was still living, not dying. He looked at me now, eyes soft but firm. I never forgot, and I'll never forgive what I heard tonight. Sophia, I'm calling off this wedding. A hush, then a glass shattered somewhere. Mom stood pale and furious. Michael, you don't know what you're doing. He looked at her cold. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm walking away from this to protect what actually matters. He crossed the room, stopped beside Liam, knelt. Thank you, he said softly, for being the light you are. Then he turned to me, held out his hand. I took it. Not because I needed saving, but because someone had finally said it out loud that I had been there all along and they just chose not to see me. It took less than 48 hours for the calls to start. Elenina was first. She didn't ask if I was all right. She didn't ask about Liam. She went straight to the point. Sophia hasn't left her apartment, she said, her voice tight. She's humiliated, and Michael, well, he'll regret it. But you just stood there and let it happen. I said nothing. She was your sister, she snapped. You couldn't stop him. I didn't ask him to, I replied, and I certainly didn't make him lie. There was a silence on the line. Then a bitter laugh. Always the victim, she said. You made this about you as always. I hung up before she finished. 2 days later, Hannah, one of the bridesmaids, called, the only one who'd ever tried to include me in anything. She brought over tea once when I had the flu. She remembered Liam's birthday. I just wanted to check in, she said, cautious. Sophia's still a mess. I'm sure she is. Hannah hesitated. She keeps saying you planned this. That Michael, he only called off the wedding because you turned him against her. I didn't answer. Look, she added, voice lowering. I'm not saying she was right. What she said at the reception was awful, but maybe it's better to just let it go. You've got your son, your life. What's the point in stirring it all up again? There it was, not apology, not understanding. Just the hope that I would go back to being quiet so they didn't have to feel uncomfortable. That same afternoon, I saw that Elenina had left a voicemail. I think we all said things we didn't mean, she said. Let's be adults about this. Family is still family. No mention of what those things were. No ownership. Just the suggestion that time should do the work that remorse refused to. I didn't call back. They weren't looking for reconciliation. They were looking for cleanup. Damage control. Someone to help them carry the consequences of their own actions quietly without asking for accountability. But I'd done enough carrying. I didn't owe them silence anymore, and I wasn't going to make it easy for them to rewrite what happened. Thanksgiving came and went without an invitation. Christmas cards arrived in the mail from distant cousins, but not from Elenina, not from Sophia. And I didn't send any in return, not out of spite, just stillness. There were no more calls, no follow-ups, no forced gatherings. It was as if my silence had drawn a line so clear. No one dared to cross it, not even to pretend things were normal. One afternoon in February, I ran into Brian, our cousin, at the grocery store. He looked uncomfortable fumbling with his cart, pretending to be surprised to see me. "I heard about the wedding," he said finally. "That was something." I waited. He shifted his weight. "I mean, Sophia shouldn't have said those things. But emotions were high. Family gets messy." I looked at him for a long moment before answering. "No," I said quietly. "Family gets cruel when cruelty is tolerated." He didn't say anything else, just nodded and turned down the bread aisle. Later that week, Liam asked if we were going to Nana's for Easter. I looked at him carefully. "Do you want to?" He thought about it, then shook his head. "They don't really see us there." I smiled, brushed his hair back. "That's okay. We see each other." And that was enough. I didn't need a seat at their table. I wasn't waiting to be forgiven or remembered or invited back into the role they'd written for me. The next time someone brought up that night, I didn't explain. I didn't retell. I just said one sentence. I was there. They just lived easier pretending I wasn't. And no one dared to argue. Spring came slowly that year. The snow melted in patches, leaving behind damp earth and small, stubborn flowers. One Saturday, Liam asked if we could visit Emily's grave. We brought daisies from the farmer's market and a small drawing he'd made that morning. It was a recreation of his old picture, 3 stars in a night sky. But this time they weren't scattered. This time the smaller star was nestled between the others. Still glowing, still quiet, but not alone. He knelt in the grass, smoothing the paper beside the headstone. "I think she'd like this one better," he said. Michael stood a few steps away, hands in his pockets, head bowed. He'd met us there like he always did when it mattered. Not to say something. Just to be. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. The breeze lifted the edge of the paper. The sun caught the corner of a laminated photo tucked behind the stone one I hadn't seen in years. It was me sitting in the hospital chair holding Emily's hand. Liam asleep on my lap. Someone had printed it, protected it in plastic. Tucked it there where memory doesn't fade. I didn't cry. I just stood a little longer than I had to. Then I placed one final thing beside the drawing, a folded page from Sophia's wedding program. My name had never been on it. Now it rested here where it mattered. Not to be remembered, just to remind them I had been part of the story all along. If you've ever been quietly erased and chose not to explain why you stopped showing up, just leave one word they never gave you.